There's a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. It comes from the tension you feel all day long as this question circulates your mind. Did I just give myself away? Maybe it was a laugh at the wrong moment, or you didn't make eye contact when you were supposed to, or horrors, you did make eye contact when you weren't supposed to. Ugh. I carried that tension into everything I did for most of my life. I thought it was just normal existential dread. I thought it was anxiety. And it turns out it was totally optional. Hey, I'm Dr. Regina, Ph.D., and this is Divergent Paths, the podcast for late-diagnosed neurodivergent adults, where we talk about the many things we've experienced and ways to work with your brain to make your life a little easier. I also write a weekly newsletter, Nerd Notes, where I deep dive into the topics we discuss on the podcast. The link to the sign up is in the show notes. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the tension of people-pleasing and how much work it takes to hide in plain sight. People-pleasing often gets framed as you being too nice or having no boundaries, but that's not what it felt like on the inside. On the inside, it felt like I was taking care of other people. It felt loving. It felt good. Recently, I've realized how much tension lives in people-pleasing. And not just because you're hypervigilant reading the room to figure out how to behave properly. There's also all of this energy in you reading other people's responses to you. You're watching everyone because you're asking this question, did I read the room right? Did I misstep? Did that joke land? Did I cause a problem? You're not just hypervigilant about picking up on what will help you belong in the situation. You are at the same time watching your own performance and watching for people's reactions. You're looking to see how what you said landed and if your performance is believable, because you don't want to slip up. You don't want to look like too much. You don't want to let the wrong reaction show. You want to control as much of what's being perceived of you as possible. And this tension ends up not being about ethics or indecision. It's about figuring out what keeps everybody in the room regulated and keeps you safe. Rarely is there one right choice. Like sometimes there are, but most of the time when you're people-pleasing, you're just looking for what will help you feel like you'll be detected the least, right? Because on some level, when you're masking and when you're people-pleasing as a form of masking, you're watching people's reactions because you want to keep them in a regulated state, regardless of how you are with your own regulation. And an example of one time when I people-pleased, a lot of my people-pleasing meant saying yes when I really meant no. Not just to like doing things or agreeing with like people's opinions on songs or other things I've talked about in the past. Sometimes it meant saying yes to things I didn't like. Like not just small things like songs, like when my daughter's dad and I got married, my mom wanted to buy us a wedding gift. And we went to visit her a couple of months after we were married. And she took us to an antique store nearby where she did a lot of work. And she had told me that she had picked some artwork out for us because we were about to buy a house, or we had just bought a house. I don't remember exactly if we had the house or not. I think maybe we did. She wanted something to go on the walls. And so she had picked out some artwork for us. And we walked in and she was so excited to show it to us. And she just loved it. And I hated everything about it. But I mean, I had a real soft spot for my mom and her excitement over things. And so I said, oh, yes, that's so cool. That's so great. Our living room had this really big wall and a really big piece of art in a gold frame. And I hate gold and like yellow gold. I hate yellow gold. And it was like, oh God, there were so many things about it that were just wrong. And I let her buy it for us. And we brought it home and we hung it on the wall. And it was on the wall for many years. And I moved it finally out of the living room because I didn't really want to answer questions about who came to visit. I put it in the bedroom briefly, and then eventually I just gave it away. And I'm laughing now because it feels ridiculous in hindsight to have said yes to something that was so glaringly not me, and was so glaringly something that I didn't like. But I knew that I would have to deal with my mom's disappointment. And in addition to that, I would have had to have dealt with finding something she could buy for us. And so in several ways, this was an easier road to take. And then consequences that I had to live with for years after. People pleasing in this instance and in many was very much how I masked. I only just thought recently about, like, I knew I was people pleasing before I knew I was masking. But people pleasing is sort of the action, it's the mechanics of what my masking looked like, right? Because masking was presenting a calibrated, acceptable version of myself and suppressing my neurodivergence. And the people pleasing was how I gained approval through that mask, right? These two things were linked in how I perceived myself and how I felt I was perceived by others. And what I've realized that there's a lot of tension that goes on in this type of masking when you're using people pleasing and putting other people's needs ahead of your own, and that's inherent in your masking. There's this tension of you worrying about falling short, of getting caught, of being seen as not your curated version. And that was tension that just carried through all of my relationships. It carried in my relationship with myself. It was tension that just ran through everything, because even when I would go to rest at night, I was still feeling that tension, because often I would ruminate on how good of a performance I did that day. And if I did slip, or if I was worried that I slipped, that would show up as well in like my thoughts at bedtime, right? I couldn't let go of it. And people pleasing and masking is not for the faint of heart. There is nothing fragile about having developed a curated version of yourself. In fact, I have often thought of my curated mask as armor, and as armor that I can still pick up if I need to, even though I really try not to very much of the time. But that strength is this protection you're building around yourself versus the strength of standing in the core of who you are. And figuring this piece out, this tension that runs in people pleasing, has made me realize how sad it is that I've been running most of my life with this tension, not realizing that it was there. I dismissed it as anxiety, as just part of who I was and part of how how I worked, how I operated. It was the cost of that performance, was carrying this tension of feeling like I might get found out. And masking isn't something that I suggest you shatter. It is a slow process, and it is something that takes time. It's like building a muscle of being able to hold off putting the mask on. It takes time, and the more you do it, the easier it gets because you get more comfortable with it. One of the ways that I led myself through this process that has helped me understand now how much tension I was carrying was learning to say things that might disappoint someone and to just say them, not crafting a way to say what I needed to say so it would land gently upon the other person necessarily. Like, I'm not advocating for being rude or mean or unkind here at all, but I spent a lot of time crafting what I was saying so that it would provide the least amount of friction in my relationships, and starting to realize that I could just say things, and I didn't understand that nothing fell apart when I did that. Like, nothing broke. I was holding all of this tension, believing I was doing all this work to keep those relationships safe, to keep the other people regulated and happy, and to keep things smooth. And people just accepted what I said. When I would say no, when I would just say, no, I don't have the bandwidth for that, or no, I don't have the energy, whatever it was, I would just say it. And even then, you don't even have to say, I don't have the energy. You can just say no. And realizing how much of that energy I'd spent thinking I was making things easy for other people and making things comfortable, and they didn't need it. Like, I was doing all of that from myself. I was doing all of that to make myself feel comfortable and make myself feel like if protecting other people and protecting their peace would make me safe and palatable and allow me that sense of belonging. And it was entirely optional. Like, I have not lost a single friendship because I said no to something. It wouldn't even, I don't think, have disappointed my mom for me to have said, no, I'm not really in this. She didn't buy it for me without me seeing it because she wanted me to get something I was going to love and appreciate. But I didn't see that. All I saw was how much I was going to disappoint her because she was so excited. And that was a disservice to her just as much as it was to me for years that I let that artwork be on my walls that I didn't love and I didn't like and didn't reflect my taste or my style or really anything about how I wanted to present myself. That's hard to take, especially when it's a relationship you can't repair anymore, when it is someone who is gone and you can't go back and say no and let it be okay that you said no. It's hard to take. But I'm still glad I've been able to do this kind of work and to recognize how much energy I spend on unnecessary performances, and realizing how much tension lies in people pleasing and in spending energy watching my own performance to make sure it was good. When you're genuine with people, they recognize it. It's something in the energy of being genuine that is so powerful, and it allows for connections that are invigorating. It doesn't drain your energy. It doesn't take from you. It provides to them and it provides to yourself. And this is a fascinating process to go through. Is this something that you've thought about? Have you thought about the tension involved in people pleasing? I feel like this is such a breakthrough moment for me. I'd love to hear from you. Hit me up at Instagram at Dr. Regina Ph.D. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to Nerd Notes, which is my weekly newsletter, and book a Make It Make Sense call with me. And let's talk about the tension in people pleasing and how you can make your life run more smoothly.